Welcome to the Wholeness and Wellness podcast. I'm your host, Megan Toops, founder of Libra Living Wellness Limited. This is episode 17 of the podcast, but it is the fifth Real Talk reflection. And today's episode is called Intertwined Individuals. Um, Healing the inner child behind the inner critic. And to recap, these real talk reflections are these episodes that I do is episodes where I share my reflections and insights about my own personal wellness path, things I tend to think about or I'm going through. And excuse me, and today is about inner child and inner critic. Um, Now, when I was kind of thinking about this and kind of prepping for this episode, I came across that the statement, the inner critic is often the inner child in disguise. And I thought that was so interesting, and it was a great, to me, starting point for today's episode because um we have these two kind of voices inside our head, but they both are us. Um, and I'm gonna try, bear with me. I'm gonna try to stay on point because I have so many thoughts about this. And I hope I can come across and make sense and reflect everything that I want to reflect. Um, but I see, again, we have those two voices. We have our inner child who is our truest self, um, and then our inner critic, which is our fearful self. And I see it that, you know, we have our truest self, our inner child, and you think of it in terms of a child who doesn't see limitations usually and is curious and excited about things. The smallest things will excite them. And I think we start off that way first at the beginning, and then we we let society or people around us, we take on what they believe, or what they do, and or things happen to us as well, and then that starts shaping our belief system, and then that kind of develops our inner critic. And I feel that we always have this constant battle between the two, and that's kind of what I want to talk about today. But and something maybe I'll save this for the end. I sometimes I get ahead of myself. Um But yeah, the inner critic, I just love that statement that goes well with this, that the inner critic is often the inner child in disguise. And maybe we'll kind of, I'll talk about that a little bit more. But let's dive in. I'm first going to kind of talk a little bit more about the inner child. Like I said, I believe that's our truest self. And I've done lots of reflection on this. And I've done and I might have mentioned this in other podcasts, like I really enjoy doing inner child work and inner child healing and meditations. And um, I think that's so important for overall inner healing because when we're younger, like I said, we first start kind of in a fresh blank state. And then people around us, you know, are doing things, or like I say, things happen to us, and then that starts shaping our belief system. It starts shaping our world. Um, and we, will react a certain way. Like I could be put in the same situation as someone else, but I may react that way because I think that's also based on just who we are as a person, our truest self, or, maybe things that we have to learn. Um, but yeah, I see that, and a lot of times I envision myself, my inner child, or what my inner child needs to heal from, especially as mentioned during one of those meditations. Um, they walk you through and you kind of walk with your inner child and ask, what do you need to heal from? Now, inner child, I always think of a young little child, like, 5, 6, 7. But in terms of this meditation, and I think in terms of anything, inner child can be any age younger than you are today. Um, for example, inner child could be when you were 20, and let's say you're 36 today. Your inner child could be 20, because maybe when you were 20 something really traumatic happened, and there's that created some kind of thought process or certain patterns for you um, in your life today that maybe have a negative effect and that you haven't healed from. So again, just to kind of explain, that inner child could be any age than what you were today. But a lot of times, I will say for myself personally, I do envision my younger self, like around, I don't know, like 4, 5, 6, or 7. It varies. Um, However, during the meditation, other ages have come up. Anyway, not to get off track here. Um, but when we get older too, I think, when we're going through stuff, we don't always see it. And I can say now, I am older, I am wiser, I understand things, I've learned a lot more things. Um, and maybe people catch this even earlier. I think it just depends on what you're going on in your life and that level of awareness. Again, I think I say awareness in literally everything I do, but it's that awareness and realizing, oh, hey, I'm still holding on to stuff. Um, and I would say that your inner child is holding on to those things and needs help to heal, so that way the person you are today can be a version of your best self. Um, Again, our inner child stores those traumas and things that happened throughout our life until the age we are today. Um, there are numerous things, right, that happen in our lives that shape how we think, how we do things. Um, and we tend to hold on to those things a lot, like, because we're never taught how to deal with them properly and be aware of those things. Now, of course, traumas or things that happen in our life are some are bigger than others and can take a lot more time to heal from, but it's being aware of the impact that those have in our lives, and if especially if we're still holding on to them, that there's that inner healing that we need to do with our inner child. Um and as I mentioned, I think when all these traumas happen and things that we go through, that's going to start shaping that inner critic that we have, um, where all the fears, all the worries, and everything sits, because like, things have happened to us, so we think those things are going to happen again, or we see other people in our lives reacting a certain way, and that lays the foundation to, oh, that's how we're supposed to act in these situations. So our inner child learns that and is like, okay, this is how I'm supposed to act in this situation, when it's maybe not the best way or supportive way um, to react when that happens. Um, so again, kind of going back, inner child is our truest self, from, to me, where our dreams lie, our hopes, our desires. But then things start happening in our lives, or we take on what other people believe, um, or traumas happen, and then that starts to shape our inner critic. Now, our inner critic can be viewed negatively. Um, I always sometimes picture like this inner voice that's really like opinionated, and typically, your inner critic's like, you can't do that. Like, I think, okay, I'm so excited. I'm going to do this. Like, I'll get excited about something. And then inner critic voice comes in and is like, you can't do that. You're crazy. You're not good enough. Why do you think you can do that? Just like all these kind of negative thoughts start going through. And I'm sure everyone can attest to that happens to them. All these doubts and fears start popping up. That's your inner critic. Now your inner critic is doing this kind of on autopilot, but it's doing this to protect you, right? All those things, again, it could be you learned a certain way, so that's an automatic response. Your inner critic is like, oh, well, we learned this from this person that we have to react in this way because this is the best way to do it. Because it doesn't know any better. um, However, and another example could be that maybe something traumatic happened to us. So our inner critic is like, oh, we're not going to touch anything closely related to that because we don't want to go to that area again, or experience those negative experiences or emotions and that trauma, blah, blah, blah. So you stay away from anything that could be related to something that same thing that happened that caused those negative emotions and trauma, blah, blah, blah. Hopefully that makes sense. Um, so it is trying to protect you. So it is trying to do something good. But a lot of times when those fears and those doubts and negative beliefs pop up, it's keeping you from doing amazing things and from living the life that you want to, because when I think of your inner critic, it's limitations. When I think of inner child, think of limitless and possibilities. So, going back to the saying that inner critic is often the inner child in disguise, I think the inner critic, again, comes in to protect us because things happened or we've witnessed how people do things. We learned how to do things based off certain experiences that we've had, but we may have learned it in a negative way, like as a way to protect ourselves, which again is not serving us in a positive way, and it is limiting us from living our best life. Um, so as an adult, as our age today, both of them show up. And again, when you think, going back to that statement again, the inner critic is often inner child in disguise, it's one and the same. We have those desires and those dreams and things that we want to do, but our inner critic is keeping us from doing them. So, and something I've been working through is to have, of course, to have compassion for your inner child, but to also have compassion for your inner critic. That is something I've kind of realized. Number one is to have compassion for your inner critic and knowing, okay, thanking your inner critic for protecting you, um, and for whatever it's trying to do, but also and having compassion for that, but realizing, and this is where that awareness comes in, that, okay, there's some things that I may need to heal with, my inner child so that inner critic voice isn't so loud. So again, that's why I think inner child inner child healing is so important for us to heal from stored traumas, from limiting beliefs, because then it'll start to quiet that inner critic voice. Now, here's the second thing I want to say is that, and I was thinking about this literally like last week. I was like, you know what? I think our inner critic, it's not that we have to heal our inner child to get rid of our inner critic. I think our inner critic is going to be there always, but we can definitely work through and heal our inner child so that our inner critic isn't so loud, and also be more aware of when our inner critic is coming through or trying to kind of like overshadow our inner child, because that happens. Um, I've definitely had that happen where my inner critic just took over and I was basically immobilized. Like I was just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I just felt almost physically frozen because my inner critic just took over. And because I had so much fear, because I was doing something so out of my comfort zone, because I couldn't predict what's going to happen, that my inner critic was like, "Hold the horses. This is too scary. So we're just going to not do anything." That feels a lot safer. So I think that happens a lot of times when we push our limits in a good way. um, our inner critic's like, oh, wait, because our inner critic wants to keep us safe. It wants to protect us. So anything out of the norm, the inner critic was like, usually puts the brakes on. And again, that's where we start self-sabotaging ourselves. We let fear take over. Um, we let our worries just overtake us and keep us from moving forward towards the things that we want to do in our life. And I'm gonna start crying now. And this is just something that I've been personally working through myself and just really learning to become aware of those voices. How that inner critic shows up in our lives. But that inner child is still there and it's like, I want to do those things. I'm here. I'm ready to heal. Because I think our inner child is there and wants to heal, but we have to make that choice. And we have to be aware. We have to, again, first be aware that, okay, there's this inner critic is getting really loud. I may need to do some healing, and that's not always pleasant. Okay? It's healing is hard, especially when you're not ready to heal. But when your inner critic becomes too loud and you're like, okay, wait a second. I'm feeling really crappy and this is not the life that I want to live. Then it's again saying, okay, it's time to do some inner healing work with my inner child, heal from these traumas. Let's maybe reframe some beliefs into something more positive. Um, And sometimes I kind of internally talk to my inner critic, okay? I'm gonna be honest. Might sound crazy, but when I hear that inner critic voice going off and saying like, and sometimes it's in the distance where I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna do this." And I kinda hear the inner critic in the back of my mind saying, no, you're not. You're not gonna do that. You're not gonna be successful. You're not gonna get it." Um so sometimes it's slightly faint, but it's still there. And that's why I said I think the inner critic is always going to be there. And that's something I've kind of came to the realization of. And I was like, you know what? I think it's about being aware of our inner critic and accepting it as it is. But also, of course, not letting the inner critic take over, acknowledging it, saying, okay, thank you for trying to protect me, but this is not serving me in a positive light. So I really want to do this, and just keep moving forward and working through it. And I know these are hard things. Like, this is why I'm sharing my own personal um wellness path, because I know that other people are struggling um with that, and awareness and healing, because it's uncomfortable, because we have to work on healing those uncomfortable things and going through that, and going through the pain of healing it, so that way we can be better on the other side. Because yes, it's ugly, it's messy, but once we kind of work through all that stuff, then we're going to feel so much better. We're going to feel lighter. And again, that inner critic, that voice is going to quiet uh, down. Now, again, it's going to, I know it's going to pop up from time to time and be like, oh, wait, especially when we're trying to do anything um, new or anything out of our comfort zone, it's going to creep back in. It's going to be like, oh, hey, wait a second. This is new. This feels uncomfortable. But it's just acknowledging it and saying, okay, I realize, it's something new, but it's exciting and it's going to be awesome. And, you know, working with your inner critic and working together and just accepting it. And I think that's also where that compassion comes in again, too, is not saying, oh, gosh, shut up, inner critic. Like, let me do what I want to do. But it's like saying, okay, thank you. I know you're trying to protect me from doing this, but it's working through it, working through healing those things from with your inner child. And then the kind of, to me, that's why I called this episode Intertwined Individuals, because I believe they are, in a way, one and the same. It's just that things happen in our life, and then we start developing this inner critic because of our fear and our limiting beliefs and things like that. So, but I think there's a way to kind of bring them together with awareness and healing, and then we can kind of move forward without letting our inner critic take over. So yeah, I hope I made sense today. Sorry to keep these pretty real and natural. I don't rehearse these podcast episodes because that's life. It's unrehearsed. It's real. It's raw. Especially to share my own reflections with everyone. So yes, hopefully that makes sense. I encourage everyone to start to be aware of your inner critic, and maybe why your inner critic voice is popping up. Maybe again, it could just be fear from trying something new, or there's some old limiting beliefs that you have to work through, or there's even some old traumas, that you have to work through. And if they're very heavy, definitely get guidance and support and help, because it's hard to work through some of those things on your own. But yes, I encourage that for everyone, to be aware of your inner critic and really tap into healing your inner child, so that you can really embrace your truest self, so that way you can live your best life. So some exciting news. I think I shared on the last episode. I have some wellness programs, online wellness programs now available on the website. So www.libralivingwellness.com. Wholeness Wellness Works. There's 3 online wellness programs that will be available. I also, in addition to that, I am now on the Insight Timer app. So it is a wellness platform app where you can listen to meditations, different wellness courses related to various topics. So I now have content on that app. So you can download. I encourage everyone to please download the Insight Timer app. You can follow me, and when I put new content on there, you will get that update. And there's lots on there like to explore. I don't even know how many kind of teachers or coaches or guides that have content there. So I encourage you, like I was on it, following people before I put my content on it. So I was like, hey, let's be a part of this. So I encourage you to do that as well. Well, I thank you all for tuning into this episode. I hopefully stayed on track. Hopefully it turns out good. And I encourage you all again to just be aware of your inner critic and aware of any inner healing that you need to do. Thanks again, and until next time.